Anita.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm very good, very good. A little bit tired. I've been doing a little bit of travelling recently, and I've not been used to it. So it's one of those, and then throw kids into the mix, and it's.
Yeah.
But I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate it. As usual, usual format. What I wanted to do was just ask you if you could just introduce yourself. I know you've been doing this for a few years, so and you can tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do, and then we can go into sort of what the organisation does. So yeah, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Okay, so I'm Anita Davies. I actually live in beautiful Wales, and I'm the Locality Development Manager for Sight Life. I cover Swansea and East Talbot, which is in the South Wales area for anybody who's not sure where that is. And I'm also a rehab officer by profession as well. So, but my role within Sight Life is to manage and provide services, support, help, anything that people might need or want to help them with their sight loss journey. So that could be somebody who has been diagnosed with a condition, but not necessarily having sight loss at this point in time. And it might be about supporting them around how they can move forward with any fears they have around getting sight loss and how that impacts on their life, to somebody who's lost their sight completely and maybe they might have had sight loss all of their life, or it might be a new journey for them. So it's quite a variety spread of people really at different places, different stages in their life.
Excellent, excellent. And how many members have you got there at Sight Life?
In Swansea and Talbot, we have
Yep.
around, we did have around about 1,100 members. Over the lockdown period, we've had a lot of members who have passed away for mainly because they've been elderly or they've had ill health. So I would say now we've got around just over 1,100 members on our Swansea and Talbot database. In all, throughout the areas that we cover with Sight Life, we've probably got around about 3,000 members-ish altogether.
Okay. And obviously, when I'm talking to different societies, one of the nice things about chatting to you all is that everybody sort of have different approaches. So you might be doing sort of similar jobs, but it's interesting to hear about sort of innovative ways that organisations are sort of either reaching out to people or helping them. And I know we had a chat the other day, and I think you've got a project that you're working on at the moment that's kind of, probably quite pertinent at the moment. I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that and sort of how it's helping people.
Yeah, certainly. So one of the projects we've got going, we run lots of different types of services, and one of those is called Make the Change. It's come from the service we originally developed, which was called Finding Your Feet. It's now called Make the Change because it's focused around helping people make a change in their life to whatever aspect of their life that might be. So we have 7 main themes that we deliver, and each of those themes are delivered weekly. So there's one theme per week over 7 weeks. They're delivered at the moment through conference calling, so they're delivered through group calls. They're normally delivered face-to-face, but due to lockdown and people not being able to meet up face-to-face, we've set this up over the phone because most of our members do not access the internet. So group calling via the telephone or mobile has been the way to go, really. It's actually been a very successful project over the phone. The only restriction we've had is that the phone calls are around about an hour, because most people get an hour free with their telephone providers. But the beauty of the group calls as well is that we can dial a person into the call if they're not able to dial themselves in for whatever reason. So we have the 7 main themes that we do are transport, money, shopping, entertainment and leisure, which also covers hobbies. So that's your hobbies, your interests, your leisure time, in how you can keep fit. There's well-being, there's the environment, and there's falls prevention. So preventing people from having falls by looking at their environment and creating awareness there. And digital inclusion. So that's about how we help and support a person from moving maybe from landline to mobile, doing various techniques and using the mobile for different purposes, whether that be reading mail, whether that be communicating with friends and family, using internet, etc. And then and going through that kind of those different levels of using technology. Then we also have a workshop around benefits and concessions, and that kind of covers things that are available to a person if they're registered blind or severe sight impaired now. Blind, the registered blind is the old terminology, isn't it? So if you're severe sight impaired or you're partially sighted, the things that you can get. So that doesn't necessarily have to be physical money in your hand. It could be other types of concessions that actually at the end of the day helps you to save money. And then we have a hints and tips workshop. So that's been designed by one of our visually impaired volunteers. And those are kind of hints and tips of everyday life where you can bring all of those different themes together and put them into an everyday life thing you do. And the beauty of the calls is that people get to share their own hints and tips through each different theme as well. So the people on the call will say, well, actually, this is what I do. And it's a really good way of sharing your own individual hints and tips about how you cope with your sight loss in those different themes.
That's brilliant. So the members can, to be honest, I think somebody has mentioned this to me before, but I've never used it where, if you have somebody who's maybe elderly and not confident at maybe dialing or whatever. So presumably, you just call their phone, they pick it up and then they're connected. And like you say, that's ace. So they can, they're talking to each other. Because I know, obviously, this whole thing, I mean, it's been isolated for a lot of people. But that's the thing that, like you've just said there, there's possibly things where people are doing something that maybe others haven't thought about. And also, I always think it's kind of nice if you've got, maybe it's not like an expert, just a regular person that's telling you about something that you've not thought about before. It kind of, it comes across a bit better because you're not being told it by somebody in authority or somebody that's trying to sell you something or something. It's just just almost like a life hack type thing. So that's interesting. That's it. And you were saying there, so if somebody saying that sort of situation where they're comfortable with using the landline, but you might be able to identify, or they may have even identified themselves that actually maybe a mobile phone would be sort of interesting, just a standard, not necessarily a smartphone, might be of benefit to them, then you could sort of guide them through that. So, because I think there's always that risk, sort of people our age, where you'd sort of think, oh, well, if this person would just learn how to use a tablet or something, it would change their lives. But for a lot of people, that's a massive leap from not being able to use something to then do it. So it's almost like kind of like baby steps. That's very interesting. Yeah. And I guess with regards to technology, I mean, probably, I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I'd assume that a lot of the people that are maybe going to start to use technology that have never used it before are maybe over a certain age kind of thing. I mean, do you find that sort of the younger people tend to pick up on stuff more than the elderly people, or have you got any examples of where that? I don't know. I'm probably completely wrong there, just assuming.
It's actually really interesting because obviously, people who are I got a 14-year-old, she's visually impaired and she can use technology and it comes to her quite easily. And some people would say, oh, I'm in my 60s or my 70s or I'm in my 40s, and I can't, there's no way I could use technology because it's not something I've ever done. It's not something I'm interested in. And they might be feeling quite fearful of doing that. But this is why the baby steps are important, because some people you can chuck in the deep end and some people you need to take into the shallow end. Yeah. And I think it's about us trying to, when we're working with people, to look at, well, are they somebody we need to take into the shallow end or more into the deep end, because they can do this. And just as an example, on our group calls, we have, like I said earlier, we have a number of different groups. So we have social support groups, we have a women's group, a men's group, we have a yoga group, an exercise group, and a laughter yoga group. And one of the ladies in our women's group, she's 100, and she, so she's 100 years of age. Wow. She uses technology. She does emails. She conference calls her children, so she uses.
Wow.
She gets FaceTime to talk to her family. She's got severe sight impairment. She's limited in her mobility, so she doesn't really go out and about. So technology is basically her lifeline. And she's constantly learning about new hints and tips of things that she can do. So, we've been talking about different apps that she can use on her iPad to do various things. But I mean, she's been able to, make masks for the NHS for people. She's been for a charity, and she has, she's got macula, so she has got that kind of. She doesn't have the detailed vision, but she's adapted and found ways of doing that. And sometimes it's because we find that we say we can't do something because we are fearful of doing it, and sometimes it's just not our thing. But what I like to explore with people are, well, is this a fear you have, and why are you fearful of it, and how can we overcome that fear? Because if you overcome that fear, what could doing this particular thing with technology, for example, or with any of those other themes that I just talked about, what could going out and catching the bus do for you? How could that change your life? How could maybe being able to send an email or text message, either using your phone or being able to type that into the phone, however it might be, or conference call in your family, so you can see them all on the video at the same time. It doesn't really matter what it is, but how could that make a difference to your life and make you feel happier, make you feel more fulfilled, all of those kind of positive feelings. So that's why I think these projects are really important. And for visually impaired people, even though there's a lot of organizations out there that support older people, they don't necessarily understand the challenges and some of the issues people have when they have sight loss. So it's one thing using technology and maybe being an older person or having all of these kind of barriers or fears you might have. But when you have sight loss, it adds another layer of fear. Well, how can I do that because I can't see, and how could I possibly listen to something? And I totally get that, because I've had to go through that transition myself. So I do know how difficult it is from going to be able to see something to not being able to see something and having to listen to something. But it can be done. And if my 100-year-old lady can do this, I truly believe that anybody can do it. You just have to have that, or you just have the support, and it is out there to be able to do it.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there. So it's like the perceived value. So almost sort of forget the thing that you need to try and figure out how to do everything on this tablet. And I don't know anything about social media and so on. But like you just said there, if it was only one thing you just wanted to be able to do, say call relatives or whatever, then, because I know we had that recently in my family. So my grandma, she's not been able to hear for years, and we've always said about her sort of getting hearing aids and so on, and for one reason or another using sort of your words, she's probably been fearful about it. And we've had sort of recent introductions of babies and so on in the family, and she wants to get more involved with that and wants to be able to hear them. And that was kind of the driving force behind her deciding, right, that, this is the thing. And now, she's kind of, I think she kind of regrets that she didn't do it sooner. I think that's the thing, because a lot of sort of people, so probably most of the people that watch this video, you might not be aware, but I think sometimes we kind of use technology for technology's sake, kind of thing, like, and you maybe you take a lot of it for granted and maybe don't think too much about it. Certainly the millennials, it's having video calls and so on is not a new thing, but for most of the people, and I think this period's really highlighted to the benefits. And I guess also from a support point of view, so some of the using the framework that you've spoken about there, again, it possibly helps if somebody can, if they've got enough kind of visual acuity and they can see what's going on, then it could help explain things a bit more to people. So that is really interesting. But wow, 100 years old, that's crazy.
It is amazing. And also just, I have one of my members who's also one of my volunteers. She's around about 57, and through the whole process through lockdown, she fought the whole idea of doing things online. Again, she has lots of ill health issues, so she can't go out easily because she has to be able to make sure that she protects herself because of the nature of her illnesses. She's very vulnerable to having any kind of infection, things like that. So she's been limited in her ability to go out. So she can physically walk, but due to her illness. She's not kind of gone outside the front door, but she's kind of gone from using her mobile to the point of using her iPad. She now has learned how to use Zoom. She's now doing her shopping online, and it was kind of funny because I said to her, well, I still don't do shopping online.
Me too.
In fact, I really hate using the internet to do shopping. And I say to my children, if there's something you want me to buy you, like for Christmas, birthday, whatever, you have to send me the link. So I just click the link, go onto whatever the website is, and purchase it. I like to physically interact with my shopping. That's my excuse. But she was like so excited by the fact that I've been giving her all these lessons and sort of like trying to encourage and develop her to expand a bit more so she has more access to things. And she was like, I can shop online and you can't shop online, so I could do something that you can't do. And I was just like, that's brilliant. That's really great. I love the fact that they feel that they're kind of seeding me because they see me as somebody who's kind of got all of this knowledge, but for them knowing that I still have limitations, if you like, in some aspects of what I do, and they're probably not limitations, it's just the way I like to interact with things. So I don't necessarily believe they're limitations in that I'm restricted to doing online, but I just don't like doing it. But if I had to do it, I suppose I would. But again, that's something it would be an aspect of me that I need to learn and develop myself. But some of my, like this particular member of mine, she loved it because she was doing something that I don't do, or that I don't like doing. She was like, yes, I do something you can't do. So there is that ability to do, but she needed to be. You couldn't chuck it into the deep end of doing that. You had to help her ease into that and give her that confidence and help her overcome any fears and get it to a place where she can go, oh yeah, I can do this.
Yeah. No, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's, well, again, if you just use you and me as an example, there's about, so online shopping, I'm the same as you. I don't do online shopping for one reason or another. And that's the thing, I think, with so many of these things, it really has to be kind of these small steps before, you just go out there. And I don't know what a good analogy would be, that maybe if somebody's learning to drive, it's a bit nerve-wracking, but then as soon as you the penny drops and you can do it, the freedom it gives you. And I think being able to do things like online shopping and so on is a huge boon to people. And technology has kind of come on leaps and bounds. Really a lot of what everybody's using at the moment, it's been around forever. In fact, the computer that I'm talking to you about now, I'm trying to think, was it 5 or 6 years old, and the camera's not great on it, but it kind of does the trick. But I've never had so much use from the camera. In fact, even sort of with friends and family and so on, I've never really used sort of FaceTime or any kind of video. And because that's the thing, you can just go and see people face to face. But we found, just as a company, sort of, obviously we would class ourselves as a technology company, but there are plenty of people sort of in our business that, again, it's all new to them. So they've had to kind of learn and adapt. And we felt that it's been fantastic because I don't think, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, sometimes if somebody's got a query with a product that maybe they've had, or they've got a question and it needs to be something that they need to show you on a camera, well, they can do that now. And I think as awful as this has been for everybody, it really is kind of, it's possibly given some people independence that they may never have been able to, or may never have been comfortable with sort of getting involved with and so on. So that is really good. And I really like the sound of the sort of the framework there. So the Make the Change project, that's very good. And like I said, I'm sure somebody has mentioned to me about things like dialing in, because obviously I know that you can do it with things like Zoom, but I was assuming that that you would have to dial that number yourself. And maybe with, I don't know, what platform do you use for that? So we
use the Cooperative. So Cooperative have a platform where you can do conference calling and you can dial people in. That's the only difficulty with things like Zoom and other video platforms. You can dial into them, but if somebody, if that's a long number and then they've got to enter the code, some people find that difficult. But this is the other good thing about the Make the Change, is that we So when somebody says, oh, well, could you dial me in?
Yeah.
Then, or because I can't do blah, blah, blah. So when people say I can't do, then it normally indicates that there's a resistance, there's a barrier, there's a fear, there's, you know, something kind of limiting and negative going on there for them, because they're like, well, I can't do that. And, you know, you acknowledge that they're saying, well, I can't do that. And there's some fear, they want to be able to join the call, but there's like a fear for them about how they do that. So you take that fear away by dialing them in. But the next step really is about trying to enable them to get to a point where they could dial themselves in. Now, if that is because they can't record the number, they don't have a device to record the number down, they can't write it on a piece of paper because they can't reach it back, then it's actually, it gives you a good platform, or it gives you it opens up a discussion that you can have with them. Well, you know, what would be the best thing for what could you do to help you record a telephone number and then be able to listen to that or read it back or whatever it is that you need to do, so you could do this for yourself.
Yep.
And then that kind of opens the whole arena up of, you know, different solutions, different challenges, just different problems that they have, just from that one conversation of like, well, would you like to join this conference call and can you dial yourself in? So,
Yep.
you know, it just opens up a whole kind of whole nest of things for them that you can actually start exploring and start discussing. And for some people, it is just better to continuously dial them in because it gives them that security. And as they're doing the calls and they're learning things and they're just taking that little step to making a change to their life, you can then, you know, it may be that the dialing themselves in is actually going to be the end goal, because they would have done all these other things. If you imagine that as a triangle, they would have done all of these other little things at the bottom of the triangle that doesn't involve them dialing into a telephone call, but it does actually involve like how they're going to access the really important things in their life. And then the final top bit of the triangle is actually where they can dial themselves into a call, which is something they can do at the very beginning, you know. So you can look at this in different ways, really. It's looking at it about, so, well, what would work for that person?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And we found sort of since doing these calls, because all this, I mean, that's the thing. I've never spoken to anybody that's had this kind of approach of just sort of, well, it's probably unfair to say never had this approach, but I quite like the fact that you've got a framework and that you sort of work into what people need. So it's not just a sort of the only way that you can communicate with, as if you have Zoom, or if you know how to use a computer, or you know how to dial a number, or you can dial. It sort of breaks down that barrier. And I'm sure we found since doing these videos that they kind of reach a much wider audience than I think, some of the people that we're talking to, I think they maybe haven't realised, well, they may have realised now, but there's probably people, relatives or friends that are living in different parts of the UK that maybe have friends or relatives that are in your area, and they might be thinking to themselves, how do I get in touch and so on. What's the easiest or the best way for, if somebody does know somebody that's in your area that thinks they would benefit from having this kind of level of service, how would they find out about that?
Okay, so so a person who can use the internet, they can either go to the Sight Life webpage and they can look up all the information there, if that's what they prefer to do. They can email me, and my email address is anita.davies@sightlife.wales. They can phone me on my mobile, which is 07824 541982. Or the office number for the Swansea office is 01792 776360. Now, just make people aware, we also cover Cardiff and we cover the Rhondda, Cynon Taf area. The services in those areas are delivered slightly differently to how we do them in Swansea. It's a bit like what you said earlier, you know, different regions, different places deliver services in different ways. So the services that we deliver in Swansea and Port are based on, I mean, it's done this in other areas as well. So I'm not saying it's not done like this in other areas, but our approach has been very much around our members deciding how they want those services delivered. And then I implement that then. So I just make those things happen. And so different people in different areas will have different ways in which they want that to done. So the people in Cardiff would have maybe a slightly different approach to the people we have in my area, because we'll have slightly different challenges. So I've got in Swansea, we'll have the city, but we also have the rural areas and we have the valleys, you know, so we have a different makeup. And again, in Neath Talbot, but I would encourage anybody that knows somebody with sight loss rather, or even been diagnosed with a condition so they don't have the sight loss, but they have a condition and they might be a bit fearful of the future and what that holds to them, is to contact us, have a discussion, and get some advice, some support, and then you can decide from there what you want to do. Life is about choice. And once we know our choices, we can decide what we want to do with them.
Absolutely. No, I think that's excellent, because that's the thing. I always, whenever people tell me sort of membership levels, you almost, there must be other people that are in the areas that maybe aren't so familiar with this kind of, these kind of levels of service. And like you said there, the irony is that a lot of the emphasis is and we're kind of guilty of ourselves, is we sort of focus a lot online. And if that person who is going to benefit from it, if they're not online, and they're probably never going to be, kind of thing in the short term, then it makes it difficult. So certainly, yeah, no, that's great that people can call in and so on. So no, excellent. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. And it was really interesting to hear, especially about the 100-year-old that's using a using a technology, probably more than me, maybe. And certainly the 57-year-old that's doing online shopping. Yeah, I need to probably look at that. It's always a gripe of mine every week. It's my responsibility to go to the shops, and no end of times friends have said, but why don't you just do online shopping? But yeah, I don't know. I need to get over that. I need to come and have a call with you.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to say, you know, a lot of our visually impaired members, they get so inspired by, you know, the work, their journey that they've taken. And this is kind of one of the things I absolutely love about my job, is you see a person's journey. You see them develop from, you know, where they were when they first joined us to where they are now. So the 57-year-old I referred to, I mean, she now delivers our shop and money workshops.
Wow. Okay.
And, you know, she's done we've given her training around presentation training and training. And you know, this is what she had to learn, how to get onto Zoom in order to take part in those. But yeah, I mean, she is in such a different place now to where she was when we first met her. That it's just amazing to see people's journeys, and I suppose it's, you know, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what makes me love my job.
Yeah,
just seeing the differences that it makes to people's lives.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a common theme throughout these calls, is that we all work in a sort of a field where the sort of feel good factor and sort of helping people and so on is significant. It's not always the case for most people in most jobs. So no, that's good. And I'm going to be really rude now, but how long have you been doing this for?
Well, I've been a locality manager for 10 years in Swansea, but I've actually worked for Sight Life since 1990. I'm going to just work on 1993.
Wow.
And I worked in the sight loss sector for kind of since 1992, really. I've always had sight loss, so even before I got into this kind of work, I went to the RNC, the Royal National College for the Blind, and I was kind of very much into running stuff and, you know, doing services even back then. So, you know, my love then was judo, and actually getting people with sight loss into judo, and, you know, teaching them how judo can actually make a change to their life. So I used to be in the British Judo Squad, and I was the first woman to go around the world with the men judo team to develop visually impaired women's judo internationally and through the world.
Okay.
And I used to be a world, European and international champion. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
why did we not talk about that? Wow.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, definitely. When you see me next, you'll have to throw me over your shoulder, catch me unawares.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
that's amazing. That is incredible. Wow. Funnily enough, My son, so he's 4, and we've had so many people sort of advisors that getting into sort of martial arts is great for, obviously, for discipline and fitness and so on. And the one sport that keeps coming up is judo, but I'm just kind of fearful because I'm the one that plays with him on his trampoline. And I said to my wife, I'm going to have to do some classes to make sure I can, if he gets into it, I can defend myself.
Yeah, well, actually, it's just funny you did say that, and I'll just make the very quick story. But when I was professionally competing, so I used to be in the Welsh sighted squad as well as the British visually impaired squad. And anyway, my dad and a friend of his used to like to do, I don't know if anybody remembers Pink Panther, but there used to be a man on the films, Pink Panther films, who used to kind of go round and, you know, a surprise attack.
Yeah,
the Pink Panther guy, or whatever his name was, and anyway, they used to kind of like doing that to me. They used to just like doing surprise attacks on me to see how I would react, and sometimes they would come off the worse aware for it, but it used to be quite funny.
Wow.
To the point where I think they in the end they decided that they would no longer surprise attack me because it wasn't doing much for their backs and things. But yeah, you know, it's a really good sport to do, especially if you have a visual impairment. I mean, there are people I know with visual impaired that do other sports like jiu-jitsu, taekwondo and things like that. I used to do karate as well. But for me, for judo was one of the, you get to feel and learn how other people's bodies move.
Yes,
and you get to have that interaction with people's bodies that you ordinarily wouldn't get. Unless you were in a very close relationship with them. So you get to be confident around other people.
Yes.
You become less fearful of when people come near you or close to you, because you have your own self-confidence within that interaction you have with them. And I used to just love watching how people would grow from, you know, like, oh, no, I can't do that, to like, you know, come here, I'll throw you, sort of thing, you know. And people, whenever you say to them, they're like, oh, don't throw me, or they sort of like, oh, I bet you couldn't throw me, you know. And it doesn't matter how big they are, how small they are, you know, if you know the techniques and you know how to implement them, they can be 20 odd stone. I'm only 5 foot tall, and you know, I can throw somebody who's 6 foot and over 20 odd stone. You know, it doesn't kind of really matter, because it's all about the technique and how you get into that position with the person so you can break their balance, you know. But it's an amazing, it's just an amazing sport. It's just done so much for me in my lifetime. I know it's had I used to run my own judo club and things like that, and just, you know, the journeys you watch people take, just as it does in my role now, you know, but in a different way. But it is that journey that people make.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you certainly wouldn't have any problems with me. I'm 6 foot, but I'm like a weeble at the moment. I really have let my fitness go, so I think you'd be able to throw me miles. My balance is not great at the best of times. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, thank you for adding that. No, that's really good. That's the thing. You never know. When we first started these, they were maybe a little bit sort of more scripted, but it's always better when they're not, because it just means that we can talk about things like this. Wow, who'd have thought we'd be talking about throwing each other, or you throwing me, more like. Brilliant, excellent. Well, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and hopefully, your phone will be busy, and there'll be plenty of people that contact you, because that's the thing. This is really, I mean, these kind of things, people need to know about it, and I think that's the thing. A lot of it is kind of awareness more than anything, and I like the whole idea that sort of make the change, and just like say doing the baby steps. I think that's really really good. Yeah.
It is awareness. It's very much about awareness, because if you have awareness in something, as I said before, then you can make a choice, because you have your choices. You know that you're aware of something. You can make a choice to do or not to do, or to stay as you are.
Yeah.
But once you make that choice, then, you know, information is power. Power is knowledge, and knowledge is you've been able to make that change and impact on your life. So
that's superb,
it is about awareness and choice.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much. And have a great weekend. I think the weather, I don't know, actually. The weather looks like it's going to be good, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's a nice sunny day outside here, so.
Excellent. I'd love to say goodbye in Welsh, but I can't. You do it.
It's just Hwlfar.
There we go. Oh, yeah, that sounds easy. Yeah, I'll remember that. I struggle with Swansea. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.